Guys, buzzing to be back with Buzzing Podcastivity. I've got another guest here today in the studio, motivational speaker, reformed criminal, David Breakspear. Let's see what he's got to say. Hello guys, welcome back to Buzzing Podcastivity with Nathan. We've got a guest here today. He's a public speaker, motivational speaker. He's an advocate for prison reform. He's an ex-prisoner himself, and he does some fantastic work to make change in policy and just basically empower other people in their journey from crime to rehabilitation and enrichment of their lives. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to David Breakspear. How you doing, Dave?
I'm really good, Nathan. Thank you very much for having me, mate.
You're welcome, man. It's really nice to meet you. We had a bit of chats and links in, haven't we?
We certainly have. Yeah, been connected for a while now. Well, not too long, obviously.
Yeah, but it's long enough.
It is.
I feel like I've known you forever.
It does, yeah. No, it does. It's great to be. As I say, it's really good to be. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you, man. So I just want to get straight into it, mate. You know, now we've done the introductions and that. You grew up in Kent, didn't you?
I did grow up in Kent, yeah, down in the south east coast. Thanet, Ramsgate, Margate, Broadstairs.
Yeah, what's it like growing up there?
It was all right. Obviously, I mean, the seaside towns in this country were killed in the 60s because how cheap it was to get to Spain. So growing up in a seaside town, and of course around the area it was mines as well, coal mines. So it was a rough area, but it was also, for a kid, it was great. It was a lovely place to grow up and be adventurous in.
So you just like loads of activity. You got the seaside. You got the sea, obviously.
Yeah.
What about what other stuff did you get? So was you, because obviously I know your story. I know you've been to prison and stuff. You know, that's the elephant in the room. That's what we're here for. But when did it really start? Like, you know, you getting into trouble. Was you always a troublesome child from very young, or was you?
But you know what, right? I sort of looking back, I got in trouble at infant school, so that's sort of 5 to what, 9 is it? I believe 5 to 7 or something. So I was getting in trouble at a young age, but then at the age of 8, I got sexually abused, and it wasn't anyone to do with the family. It was a toy shop owner. He used to work down the road, or had the shop down the road from us. Wouldn't be surprised if I was the only one there as well. But yeah, that obviously I didn't know at the time, but hindsight and what I know now, looking back, that was kind of, well, it was a traumatic experience for me.
Of course it was, yeah.
And it was something that had an impact on me. However, 18 months, 2 years after, I contracted meningitis, and I was quite ill, and that really did play up with my schooling. I started to go to junior school on a part-time basis, and I ended up going to a secondary school where, well, put it this way, when the league tables come out in 1997, when Labour introduced them, the school that I was expelled from finished top of the worst schools in the country twice, 2 years in a row. But I've jumped ahead quite a bit there.
Oh, no, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you, the abuse, man.
And do you know what? It is what it is now. I've dealt with it. I'm a long way from it now. I'm quite comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, thank you for talking about it.
Well, I mean, I think it's important that people do. Not so much for me, because as I say, I've dealt with it. Yeah, sometimes it still affects me and has an impact on me, but not very often. But I think it's important to have these conversations, to make people aware that, not just to make people aware, but to also let others know that they're not the only one if it's happened to them.
That it's okay to reach out and talk about it.
It's
So do you think that was like the start of your bad, like so the consequences of that was did you start having behavioural problems from then?
Well, look, it must have been, but I was also youngest of 6. My mum and dad, they were just turned 40 when they had me. So they had 5 kids before me, so I'd gone through everything. So when it come to me, they'd probably had enough of everything. Although they stopped at me, so I must have been the perfect one. Do you know what? I don't know. I was playing up a lot. After the abuse and after the meningitis, I started glue sniffing. I was heavy into glue sniffing, really started glue sniffing out. And I think that was to obviously get over the trauma of the abuse, self-medication, if you like, of the abuse, and getting meningitis. That was traumatic as well. Do you know what I mean? I still remember it now. All parts of it I remember now. But going through sort of primary school, going through junior school, following my 5 siblings, all I get hearing, well, you're not like your brothers, you're not like your sisters, you're not like this, you're not like that. I wish you was like him. I wish you was
From
like
your
her.
mother and father.
From not just from home, but obviously being a big family, people in the local area knew us, people, and the schools as well. So wherever I went, I'd be always compared.
And what was
to
the
one of
what
my
was the
siblings.
comparison, like a negative comparison?
Well, no, well, yeah, because I'm the only, if you like, I'm the black sheep of the family.
Okay.
I'm the only one that went down this road, but which I'd like to say that, yeah, a lot of people that have a bad childhood, that have traumatic experiences as a childhood, don't go into the criminal justice system. I get that, but a lot of people do, and just because people don't, it doesn't mean to say that people are not going to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to use what happened to me as excuses, because they're not. However, they are reasons as to why I behaved the way I did. Would I behave differently if that didn't happen to me? Probably, but we'll never know. So I suppose searching for that identity was something that I struggled with at a young age. But when I got to secondary school, 3 of my cousins had gone now, and it's like a school that's in the middle of a council estate. It's a rough school, but 3 of my cousins had gone now, and 2 of them, one was female, 2 were boys, and 2 of them really did play up. I mean, they were proper bastards at school. And it weren't long before I was being compared to them. However, you mentioned about negative or positive. Although I was being compared to them in a negative light, for me it was a positive light, because they told me I'm just like my cousin. So therefore I fitted in. I had an identity.
Right, okay.
It wasn't a great identity. It meant
Yeah.
I played up a lot at school. I mentioned about being expelled. I got suspended so many times before they finally gave up on me and expelled me. But yeah, as I say, I searching for an identity, and then they labelled me as challenging and disruptive. And those playing up to how my cousins behaved and being challenging and disruptive, I suppose, were labels that I played up to and happily played up to.
And this is what I get from this. What you said is, this is in an era where ADHD, challenging behaviour is not accepted. It's just you're a naughty child. If you probably told someone you was abused, they wouldn't have believed you. Maybe
Back then, you wouldn't
Yeah.
have said anything
You
to
wouldn't have said
anybody.
anything,
No
yeah,
one did.
yeah.
And I know that obviously I've seen some of the questions that you're going to ask me, and I know you're going to be mentioning about me disclosing the abuse that happened to me, and we will come back to that. But
Yeah.
I just want to say quickly there that when I did disclose and spoke to one of my siblings, I found out that they and another one of my siblings had also been abused when they were children. Although by a different person, it wasn't by the same person. It was actually by a neighbour. So, and that's 3 of us out of 6 that were sexually abused as children in the 60s and 70s. Now, just because the other 3 haven't said anything, we don't know if anything happened to them.
Yeah.
So, I think if you grew up in, I've said it a number of times, if you grew up in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, I think you were quite fortunate to have escaped from sexual abuse. And the government, for me, were responsible for a lot of that, because back then they used to talk about stranger danger, and it wasn't strangers that were the issue. We all knew the dodgy perverts, you know what I mean? The local areas we played in, you knew who, you got warned about the person to be careful of, and most of them walked about in a brown Mac, especially your flashers. And if someone knew you'd go down there and point them out. Do you know what I mean? It was so much different then. So you wouldn't have spoken about that to anyone. But no, I don't think I would have been believed back then. But it is important that, for me, when you see a child that is, if you like, exhibiting challenging and disruptive behaviour, rather than punish them, you need to know why they're acting up like that. I mean, if that would have happened to me back then, if someone had said to me, rather than punishing me and sending me to the headmaster, sat me down in front of a counsellor or someone, because I don't expect teachers to be experts in this, but that doesn't mean to say you can't have therapists, counsellors, whatever, mental health workers based in schools that can and are experts in kind of that type of thing. But if they would have intervened then and asked me what happened, I might have told them, and I might not have taken the path that I did.
Like early intervention.
Early intervention, prevention's better than cure.
Exactly. And my cousin went through the same thing. My cousin was in the care home. Older cousin, it's my mum's cousin. And when he was in the care home, My grandmother wanted to take him. They wouldn't allow it. He's like, no, he stays here. When he was 16, he was on the phone, come pick him up. And in that time, he was abused himself. So, the system does have a lot to answer for that era.
It certainly does. And of course, my first period of detention was Blantyre House Detention Centre, although before that I was put in a Kent remand home, and that was rough. But we've got Mendhamsley, Eastwood Park, that used to be a detention centre, Send, there's all stuff that's come out now. And I think the HM Inspectorate of Probation are actually doing an investigation into what actually went on at Mendhamsley. Because there was a lot of abuse there through the 60s and 70s and 80s.
There's an ex-officer who's been done for Eastwood Park for the abuse, isn't it? Physical abuse,
Yep.
though, wasn't sexual. He absolutely used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest and say I've never witnessed sexual abuse, but that doesn't mean to say I didn't witness or experience physical or psychological abuse.
Yeah, it was really bad, wasn't it?
It was
A man
brutal.
actually went to prison for it recently, didn't he?
Yeah.
An elderly officer from Eastwood Park.
It was Eastwood Park, yeah, it was Eastwood
Yes, I
Park.
remember seeing that. You've answered another question of me. I was going to ask you about juvenile prison. What was the circumstances of you going to juvenile prison? What did you do?
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, the justice system had enough of me. They'd put me on intermediate treatment, attendance centres, supervision, kiddies community service. I can't remember what it was called back then, but they did. I'll give them their due. They did try with me in respect of programs, but they weren't interventions. They were just programs. They were just things designed to interrupt my time and disrupt my day, which they did.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect me in respect of rehabilitation or reform or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'd had enough of me, and I'll never forget it. I'd been wanted. I was banned from a youth club, and I'd gone back round now, got into a bit of row, and I ended up hitting one of the guys that worked there with a rounder's bat a couple of times, and I knew I was in trouble, so I went on a run. And then I stole a car, and eventually, I think I was on the run. I was hiding, say on the run. I was 15, for Christ's sake. So for 2 weeks, and then I stole this car, and I got nicked, got caught, obviously after a chase. So I got remanded into this Kent remand home, Gleeblands, Harrietsham, near Maidstone. For the first 2 weeks, they put me in a secure unit. You weren't allowed to wear trainers. You had to walk around in your socks, only indoors. Outside, obviously, you could, when you were allowed out, if you were allowed out, because they wanted to make sure that you weren't going to run off or do anything stupid. I mean, it was a secure unit. And then after 2 weeks, go on to the main part of the house, and some of the guys there were just vicious bastards. They really were.
The officers, you mean? The staff?
Well, they weren't officers, the staff. Yeah,
Staff,
some
yeah.
of them, not all of them. Some of them were lovely. Don't get me wrong, and not all of them. There are some fantastic staff out there now, doing a fantastic job, but there are also some bastards out there doing the same
It's
job.
come out even after all this time. What was that? The 80s.
That was 1985, beginning of 1985.
But even now, there was it the Medway. Medway was on the news a few years ago, wasn't it? For abuse and stuff, and so it still happens. I think them jobs, you're always going to attract really good people and really bad people.
Yeah.
And in the middle, it's like everything. But I think in a job like that, there's no room for sadistic people, is there?
No, there's not. There's not. And you have to question the kind of psychology of the people that do take these. I mean, I can't understand why someone, not just be a beast at work, and not obviously the beast in the word we know, but a beast is in someone that would be beating people up, or be hated. What's the point of going to work be like that? Well, I couldn't imagine living like that and being hated.
Very unhappy existence, isn't
It
it?
must be a very unhappy existence. In a way, I feel sorry for people like that.
Yeah, I do.
I was unfortunate. I was on the end of a few of people like that, and but nowadays I can sort of not forgive it, but I can understand it.
Well, this is what I get from you, and this is why you've answered questions before I even ask them.
That's
It's
all right,
no, it's good though. It's fantastic. So like, you're so positive still. You've not let it defeat you, and I love this. This is what this podcast is all about.
Oh, but it did. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 55 this year.
Right, okay.
And I mean, it's as positive as I am now. Obviously, I wasn't positive throughout my life. I mean, it was only since I come out of prison, or well, not since I've been come out of prison actually, because I've been like this in prison. It was just out in society that I wasn't like this. But yeah, I mean, I grew more positive in prison until I don't want to jump too far forward,
No,
obviously.
that's
But
fine.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we can come back to that. But yeah, I become a better person in prison.
Yeah. So you've obviously you got stabbed as well, didn't you? I
I
read
did.
that somewhere. I don't know where I read that, but
Well, yeah, no, I've been stabbed a couple of times over the years, but this one was. I ask me why I did it. I don't know, but I went through all the sort of archives of local papers, just seeing some of well, to see what stories were printed
I think
about
it
me
was
as a
we had a
kid. We
conversation,
did, didn't we?
and I think
Yeah.
that prompted you to start having a look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Well, yeah, and there's another one that sits out there as well. It's quite an embarrassing one with a headline "Ready Teddy Go" when me and my mate got caught. We well, I can't go too much into it, but basically we ended up getting caught um, being disrespectful to the possession of the owner or something like that. And it was we see a couple of these teddies in the street, and we were kicking them down the street, and we got theft by find or something stupid like that. But the headline was "Ready Teddy Go." Um, but yeah, I just not for any reason, not because I'm proud of what I did as a kid, but really I suppose in a way as well for reflection. It's always good to reflect, of course,
Yeah, of course.
and
Yeah.
to see how far I have come. But yeah, that story, that was, I think I was 19. I hadn't long come out of youth custody again. Um, and I was walking home from a nightclub with two girls. And funny enough, I knew the fella. And I think there was some jealousy there because I was with, I don't know what was going on. I mean, I wasn't interested in the two girls, they
So
were
you don't know
friends.
the motive, like you just
Yeah, and then next thing you know, I just felt something in the back of me, and he's run up behind me, and he's like jibbing me with a knife from behind. What the fuck? And then I've walked over to this thing, went to pick up this bar, and then all I saw was blood on my arm. Next thing you know, I'm waking up in an ambulance.
So you was unconscious, yeah, took you out.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I passed. I suppose it was might have been because I didn't realise what he'd done at first. I thought he'd been punching me. I didn't realise he'd been stabbing me because it weren't once or twice. It's about 4, 5, 6 stabs, and it was only when I saw that and it was like, shit, I think I've been stabbed. Boom, and then that's it. I went.
Yeah. Wow, when you woke up in the ambulance.
Mm.
So you've really been through it, haven't you, Dave?
Yeah, well,
I mean, and you're now. I think what I get from you is you don't want to you don't want to glamorize it. You don't want to take anything like for yourself. But I think you've been through a lot. You know.
yeah, no, look, I have been through a lot. A lot of it, I brought on myself. Don't get me wrong, and I'm responsible for my actions. I really am responsible for any actions that
And that's a
I've done
powerful
over the
thing you
past.
need to have before you move forward, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is, and then and something we'll come back to forgiving yourself, but
Yeah.
we'll come back to that, which
Yeah.
which sounds selfish, but it isn't really. But yeah, shit, I forgot what I was saying.
No, don't worry, man.
You probably know why in a minute when we start talking about neurodiversity. But yeah, sorry, mate, I've lost the point then.
So about you've come a long way. You know, you've been through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I have come a long way and been through a lot, and accept those responsibilities and my own, take accountability for my own actions, and what happened to me isn't excuses, as I say. I mean, people have suffered from trauma; they've had stuff happen to them, and they haven't taken it out on society.
Exactly.
In a way, I did, but I didn't know who I was for years. I've never known who I was until 2015. That's when I really started to understand who I was,
And how old
or
was you then?
who I could be. I was 40, coming up for 46.
It's a long time.
It was a long time. It was a long time.
time,
That's
yeah.
a long lesson.
It's a long lesson, yeah. I mean, I can relate to it. You know, you can. There's no excuse for behaviours, but there's an explanation to why.
Yeah, exactly.
And until you face them demons and what's actually making things happen, it's easy to play that victim, and it's very easy to get absorbed in that and blame everybody else.
100%.
And whilst you're doing that, you're still enabling it.
Yeah, you are, and it's the same with self-medication, isn't it? Until you deal with that underlying issue, you're just going to keep self-medicating, no matter what the self-medication is, whether it be gambling, shopping.
And it's fair, isn't it? Basically, the major thing is, you know, you're out there.
Fairly unknown.
You're fairly unknown. You're out there. You think you're this big, you know. In your mind, I'm not scared of anything, but it's the total opposite.
Yeah, it's no. Totally,
You're actually very afraid, aren't you?
Totally afraid. Yeah, totally afraid. Yeah, 100%. I mean, being excluded from school meant that I didn't really have children my own age to hang about with because they was all in school. So the ones that I could hang about with have been excluded, so they're bad kids. But adults, I mean, we talk a lot about child criminal exploitation these days through county lines and things like that. And looking back, I was exploited. me and my mates were exploited. I mean, we'd be taken on to jobs, get a good score out of it, and I'm talking a couple of £1,000, which is a lot of money back in the 80s, and you'd end up with a fiver. Like, good little boy. But it weren't about the money. It was about that camaraderie. Do you know what I mean? It was about fitting in with people. I was good at something. I had an identity. Yeah. I was a criminal. Yeah, bad identity to have, and it's an identity I accepted, but it was also an identity that society gave me.
Exactly, and you get a lot of lost souls in prison, don't you?
Oh, mate.
You're suffering the same thing, isn't it?
And do you know what? That's why I do what I do now, because of what I've experienced, but what I've seen. Yeah. Not just by being a prisoner, but also through being a Shannon Trust mentor, a listener and an education mentor as well, and speaking to people in prison on different levels and just hearing their story. I mean, it's so... If the public got to hear the majority of people in prison's backstory, they wouldn't be angry at the fact they're in prison.
No.
Or committed crime, sorry. They'd be angry at the fact they're in prison because they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And it really is a case of... But when people are in prison, the horse is already bolted, it's too late. That's why prevention's better than cure. Early intervention, and the earlier the better.
Yeah, you just closed that perfectly, that what we were talking about, that bit. Thank you, man. You're making my job easier. I wanted to go into mental health, like, you know, what you just mentioned neurodiversity. What do you have, neurodiverse needs?
I do, yeah. I wasn't diagnosed until later on in life with a number of personality disorders. I was diagnosed when I was a school child. After being suspended, I got to go and see a child psychologist. And all I remember from that is doing these really pointless tests that I had to do. He'd read me a list of numbers and I had to read them back to him.
How do you know the pointless now? Like, how did you know it was pointless? Like, yeah.
Because it never had any impact on me at the time, and I saw it as... I don't think it was explained to me exactly what was going on. It was more a case of the school to justify what they were doing with me, rather than what's wrong with this kid, let's go and find out so we can help him. Do you know what I mean? Okay. It was like, I mean, I used to be a fantastic rugby player. Well, I say it myself, but I used to be a fantastic rugby player at school. I played for the school team, I played for the district, and I was about to hopefully play for the county following trials. But they kept using it against me. Oh, if we expel you, if we kick you out, you won't have a school to play for, therefore you won't be able to play rugby. And it become a weapon for them rather than something for me. Yeah. Had they have focused everything around my had they have focused my education around my rugby, again, I might not be sitting here talking to you today. I could have taken a different path in life. I could have been walking out Twickenham, captain in England. All right, a little bit old now, but I could have done a few years ago. Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? You never know. The hindsight.
Yep.
Hindsight's it can
wonderful
be a blessing.
thing. It is.
It can be a blessing or a wonderful thing. It can be a blessing or a curse, can't it?
It can be. It depends what way you take it. I mean, in one aspect, obviously, hindsight has taught me a lot about why I did what I did and what went wrong in my life, and hopefully, I can use that to try and stop people going taking the same path as me. But what I try and do is to try and influence the people that are making the decisions within the criminal justice system, so that if people do end up in the criminal justice system, they've got the best opportunities possible available to them. Because surely that's what we all want. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, yes, I suppose I stick up for people in prison, I suppose is a good way. Not everyone, but I stick up for people in prison. Yeah. However, the reason I do that is because I know what can be achieved from people. I've seen it with my own eyes. And we'd be far quicker to reduce crime, to reduce reoffending, to see fewer victims, and to have safer communities by ensuring that people in prison or people in the criminal justice system have the opportunity to get back out again. Now, a friend of mine talks a lot about exit signs. And if you've got mental health issues, if you've got neurodiversity like I had or have, you can't spot those exit signs. You need someone else to do it for you. We expect people that are living these chaotic lifestyles, which I was, to then be able to take a step back and go, oh, actually, no, that's a bit wrong. I should be doing this. It doesn't work like that.
No. And that's the thing now. Now it's known. You know, there's no excuses for people not to be helping people.
No, exactly. And back, I mean, obviously, I was diagnosed in 2010 with being ADHD and a number of other personality disorders. The one I got diagnosed with as a kid was antisocial personality disorder. Great, another label.
It's a label.
But what did it do?
It didn't do anything. In the criminal justice system,
no.
Is it?
And it just gave them more ammunition in respect of kicking me out.
Yeah.
They were justified in what they did.
Well, they used to class it as a dangerous personality disorder, didn't they?
Yeah.
Now, and I think it still is now. They can really use that against people.
They can, yeah.
Because it's basically they can class it as sociopathic behaviour, can't they?
Well, they can, yeah. I mean, any sort of things like that can be used against you, and they are used against you, especially in the criminal justice system. Yeah, it's supposed to be mitigating.
Yeah, well, it's not, is it? No. Personality disorders are a criminal justice issue. They're not a medical issue.
No, well, no, they should be. They should be considered through health, and that's the thing as well.
The World Health Organization regards it as a disease.
That's the thing. So basically, we need to look at our criminal justice system through a lens of health, and not crime, because we do a lot more in reducing the number of people in prison. Again, which is something we all should want. I want that, because prison isn't right for anybody.
No.
It's not the place for anybody. Yes, some people deserve to be in prison. Of course they do. People need to be kept away from society for a certain period of time because of something they've done. I understand that, but it's about what we do with people in prison that matters. And if prisons did what they were designed to do, we wouldn't be building more, we'd be closing them.
It's just human warehousing now, isn't it?
It is warehousing.
Underfunded.
Yeah, it is warehousing. It's been underfunded for years. I mean, it's never going to win any votes, is it? Oh, look what we're going to do. We're going to stop sending people to prison. They never win the votes. And that's one big thing with the criminal justice system, is having that political will. You need the political will. Yes, we're making small changes, myself and other people that I'm fully aware of, and you've spoken to a few yourself. They're making changes, but we need the political will for the big change.
Yeah.
If society want to have safer communities and to see severe victims and to see less children being killed by other children, then we need to get things right.
Powerful, man, powerful. Yeah. So you work with something called, is it Revolving Doors?
Revolving Doors, yeah.
What else? Do you work with any other people?
I do. Well, I say work, it's I'm volunteer for Revolving Doors, paid volunteer for Revolving Doors. I'm a full-time carer in my kind of private life, so I don't have a huge amount of spare time that I'm able to do other things. However, in the spare time I do have, I volunteer for Revolving Doors. Here we go now, here comes the list. But I'm also a lived experience influencer with the National Suicide Prevention Alliance. I'm a lived experience team member of the Samaritans. I'm an ambassador for a company called Awaken Genius. I'm also an ambassador for a company called Five-A-Side Chess. I say companies, they're social enterprises. And I'm a non-executive director for two organisations or two social enterprises, Starting Step, who are based in Scotland, and New Beginnings North, who are based up in Sunderland.
Busy man then?
Yeah, I mean, it does sound a lot, doesn't it? But I mean, the majority of my stuff is through Revolving Doors. That's where my majority of time's taken up. The Samaritans work is pretty easy, really. They send us through surveys, which is for feedback on upcoming messages, campaigns, that sort of thing. So if they've got a campaign coming up, say for argument's sake, there's a campaign coming up in the summer, they send us some different like, this is what we're thinking of saying, which one do you think's the best one, which one do, because obviously they're doing it to get donations. Which one do you think will not guarantee, but will get us money in the best, all those, a bit more to it than that. I haven't really explained it well, but that's what it. So when they're ready to launch their campaigns, they've actually gone through quite a rigorous feedback process with people with lived experience.
Right, okay. So we jumped ahead a little bit there. I jumped ahead a little bit. When did you decide to change? What was the moment you thought, I've had enough? Because you said it was 46 years old. Yeah.
Do you know? It's like a drip feed thing. It's like, I'm not sure if there is an epiphany moment. There wasn't in my life anyway. It's like a drip feed thing, and each time I was kind of in prison and I was ready. I was ready in prison. I was fine in prison. I don't mind prison. Do you know what? I could probably do prison now and it wouldn't bother me. I don't want to, but I probably could and it wouldn't bother me. But it would bother me now, actually, because I don't want to be in prison. Whereas back then I did want to be in prison. So I was the sort of person that when it come to release day and I was going out the gates, it was a case of, oh shit, not this again. Whereas a lot of people would be thinking that on the way into prison. Do you know what I mean? So I become a better person in prison. I had better roles. I was someone in prison. I was a mentor. Because I knew how to do prison, I obviously got on with staff. And I don't mean by being a screwball or being a snitch. There's many ways of playing a prison game.
Yeah.
Better ways of playing a prison game than those two. And but in 2015, I was at my lowest ever, lowest point. I was heavily on drugs, and I mean anything that I could smoke, sniff, taste, drink, whatever, anything I could put in my mouth or up my nose, I was on it. And I was round this fella's house, he was a local drug dealer, and he asked me if I didn't mind me sort of working for him, doing a few bits and pieces for him, which I didn't mind doing. And one night we were round the house, there was another fella there, there was me, flat owner, and the other fella. And we're sitting there getting on it, having a boot, a few pipes and that. And the fella I found out was the son of, the best mate of a fellow I was banged up with. Son, does that make sense? Yeah. He was the best mate of the son of a fellow I was banged up with.
So like a mutual acquaintance.
Yeah. So Dean, I was banged up with this fella called Dean. His son had a best mate, and it was this fella who was the son's best mate. So it got me thinking about him, and he died a number of years ago after taking an overdose. Yeah, it's really did. Bit of a kick in the teeth that was, really did hurt, that did.
That's the thing, when you can't go swimming without getting wet, can you?
No, mate.
And when you're involved in them circles, people do die.
Yeah, Christ, I've lost count of the number of people I've lost in my life, including my mum and dad, but friends, associates, colleagues. Yeah, I've lost a lot of people over the years, a lot of people to drugs. I don't think I've lost many people. My mum died of natural causes. My mum and dad died of natural causes, but most of the people have been either suicide, they've been killed, or drugs have killed them, or alcohol have killed them.
It's probably the three major killers of people, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's in the position I was in 2015. I was, so I jumped ahead a little bit. I was, before I met the drug dealer fella, I was homeless. I was living in a porchway of a church up in Norwich, and I was at the point where, do you know what, I'm sick of this, I've had enough. And I was going to kill myself. I had a plan to kill myself. And this one night I'm sitting there, and it's about 10 o'clock at night, and I've opened my eyes, I've looked, and there's a fella standing there. It weren't, I know it was a church, but it weren't an apparition or an epiphany or anything like that, as I say. It was a fella was standing there. Ollie, his name was. And he'd been living on the streets in Lowestoft, but he was wanted by the old Bill. So he'd come to Norwich, and in Norwich, this is where he usually stayed. So I was like, oh, you're right, mate. And we started talking. And then another fella, it was raining. And opposite the church, there's this big roundabout with a big fir tree. And as we're sitting there talking, another fella's come walking over. He was sleeping under the fir tree on the roundabout. Because it was raining, he was getting wet. So he wanted to come under cover. Brian, his name was. And the three of us just started talking, and we really did get on. We had some spice, not puff, but I'll come back to that one later as well. Jesus, nasty stuff. But so yeah, we was having a smoke and chatting, and in the end, really, they saved my life, them two. Without knowing it, they saved my life. And then it was a few days later, I bumped into the drug dealer fella. And
how did they save your life, if you don't mind me asking?
Just by being, just talking, because they were there, yeah.
Because they was there, and it sort of
and then and to be honest, following that, it was like, well, I don't want to be dead. It's all right.
That's one of my questions. Sorry to interrupt you. Is the little wins in life, little things like that. You don't, until hindsight.
Exactly.
You don't see them,
do
you?
No, you
but
don't.
These little interventions. I mean, I believe in situations like that. Them two people were there for a reason.
Sliding door moments. Yeah.
So saved your life.
Ollie turning up. Brian was someone did, but Ollie, that for me, that. But the pair of them, obviously, again, like I say, without knowing it, saved my life just by being there and talking to me. They didn't know I was going to do anything. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. So yeah, that. But in the flat, I was sitting there, and it kind of, all of a sudden we'd run out of money, run out of drugs, and my mate, the fella was getting ill, and obviously sick through drugs, withdrawing, and I thought, right, need money, and I know obviously the area, and there was a co-op and there was a newsagent. And I had him on, I said, I won't be a minute. I said, where are you going? I said, I won't be a minute. And I went out to a recce. And I went up to the co-op, and the co-op had not only it had the electronic door, so the
Can you
sliding
explain
door.
what a recce is for people who don't understand?
Oh yes, I went out to have a look round to see like what I could do, if you like, what opportunities were available to
Recon.
me. Yeah, recon. And but it was women. There were women working in there, right? And I knew what I was thinking of doing. And I've come down the road and there's a news agent. There was a fellow in there. Perfect. So I've gone back and they said, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What are you up to?" I said, "Listen," I said, "You know the shop over there?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to rob him." He went, "What?" He said, "I'm going to rob him." He said, "What?" I said, "And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back, I'll drop the money off, and then I'm going to go back because I want to get caught." Right? He said, "You're going to do what?"
What?
And he said, so anyway, I've done the job, come back, given the money, went out. Now, there's a lot of people sort of in the area. They weren't around. There weren't no one around. It was quite quiet. And it was 7:30 in the morning. So it was pretty quiet, but there were still people in houses and things like that. I was obvious what I was doing. It was July, and I had a coat on, I had a hat on, I had a scarf. So I was making myself as obvious as possible. So when I come back out my mate's flat, which was literally round the corner, come out of mate's flat, I could see people pointing. So I've just started walking up to another shop, used the money I was taking out of that shop to buy some tobacco from this shop. And as I come back out, I've got the shopkeeper. "You stole my shop, you robbed my shop." I was like, "What are you talking about, brother?" And the old bill have turned up and fucking tasers and everything. And I'm really making a loud noise about this. Because, and one thing I shouted out are you arresting the person that done the job, or are you arresting the person that you can see in front of you? Because I wanted benefit of the doubt. I wanted reasonable doubt in there because I was playing a game. Now, this may sound irrational, and it does sound irrational now, but to me, it was very rational. So I knew the place that I could sort myself out with no temptations, made a mistake there, but with no temptations around me, was prison. I knew that I could sort myself out in prison. But I couldn't do it in 2 weeks. I couldn't do it in 3 weeks. I needed a bit longer than that to sort myself out. So I had in my head 5 years, and hence why the robbery, because
you know what sentences you get for certain crimes.
Yeah, I couldn't have gone in and nicked a roll of sellotape.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I doubt if even I got caught for that.
Yeah, of course.
So I needed to do something that was going to give me long enough, and so I decided on a robbery. It was a robbery via knife point, and I done a prepared statement, because what I wanted to do is I didn't want to get a life sentence. Although a life sentence wouldn't have bothered me, because I had previous violence on my record, by the way. I wouldn't have at that point. At that point, it wouldn't have bothered me. It bothers me now, obviously, but it wouldn't have bothered me at that point. And I don't think it would have bothered me from then on, because I was in that frame of mind.
In that frame, you never would have broke that cycle.
It was an opportunity.
Yeah.
If this didn't work, that was it. That was it for me. And so when it comes to case management, police directions, all that lot, I basically turned around and said, look, once I got hold of the non-disclosure, I could see there was a lot of things in there that were benefit of the doubt. So I said, right, I'll go guilty only if no reports are written. And by no reports, I was obviously talking about pre-sentence report, but also in the back of my head thinking in 1991, or whatever year it is now, dangerousness report, where they can give you a discretionary life sentence. So they didn't accept it at first. This was on a Monday, and they said, look, come back on the Friday. Obviously, they didn't say it this way, but look, come back on the Friday, and we'll deal with it on the Friday. So I've gone back on the Friday, and the judge turned around and said to me, he said, look, he said, at the end of the day, he said, I've read the paperwork, and I honestly cannot say that a jury would have found you guilty. So I appreciate you going guilty, and I appreciate you not putting the victims through anymore, blah, 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 blah. He said, usually the starting point for a robbery is 7 years. I'm going to drop it down to 5 years and then take 25% off going guilty 3 years, 9 months. I was gutted. I went 5 years. I was like, no, I ain't playing for that. I was playing for 5 years. Joking. Well, I wasn't joking.
It's crazy though, isn't it? Like, I mean, I can believe it. And, you know, I know people.
Well, look, here we are.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been, since my release in 2017.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been arrested since that day.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've spent 2 years in prison, but I haven't been arrested since that day. That's the longest time since the age of 10 that I've never been arrested. And yeah,
you know what's really sad is that you had to do that intervention to yourself. You couldn't go to someone and say,
I might have done, but like I say, it might be an irrational thought then, or even now. But for me, it was very, very rational. That was the path I chosen. I did try and get myself off the streets by going to the council. and they did accept that they had a duty to temporarily house me while they'd done an investigation before housing me. But they couldn't house me because of my past, because I was violent, therefore I was high risk of violence, so they couldn't house me. So I had to stay on the streets.
Yeah, again, this revolving door, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, do you know what? And of course, mental health, drugs, ADHD, everything was sort of on top of me. And so, like I said, I've never really known who I was. I knew who I was in prison. I was David the prisoner. I was a pretty good prisoner, and that was a great identity for me. And I hated losing that identity.
That's the routine, isn't it? You can get up in the morning, go to
It's
work.
the things I did in there as well,
yeah.
Nathan. It was like being a Shannon Trust mentor, helping people to read.
And that gives you value, doesn't it?
It does give you value, and the thing is as well, when you start talking to people on a level, you start talking to people about what's happened to them and their inner demons. And I started to find out, well, hold on, I'm not the only one. My life isn't as unique as I thought. Virtually all these people I'm speaking to,
so you're
they
helping
were
them learn
abused.
to read,
They
but
were,
they're empowering you.
They
for
were
your
empowering
own struggles.
me, mate. Do you know what? There is so much that you can gain from becoming a mentor that I had ever given consideration to. The self-worth. I mean, I started getting more tolerance, more patience, more understanding, more empathy. I started to care about people. People around me in prison, but I started to care about people. I started to care about myself, and I started to see myself in a different light. I started to see myself. No longer did I refer to myself as scum. No longer did I say I was born in the or I belong in the gut. All of those those were the negative sort of self-talks that I was talking to myself, and a lot of people do that.
Amazing.
It's so. But on the flip side, it was a bit of a counterproductive thing, because once I started to become a better person, once I started to look at myself differently, I started to look at other things differently, I then started to get hit by all the crimes I committed. And I started to feel guilty, and I started to regret. So then all of that started coming on top of me as well. And that's when I fucked up a bit in jail and got on spice, because I started smoking spice already. Because I didn't know how to deal with this newfound set of emotions. You know what I mean? I managed to sort it out and get it sorted out. But I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't. Yes, I've become a better person. Look, go me. I'm going to turn my life around. And then all of a sudden, a kick in the nuts from guilt and regret. Boy, I wasn't ready for those. I was not ready for those.
Powerful though, because that's what you've said is just how it is, really, isn't it? It's like you've lived your life so long with your head in the sand, sort of blocking everything out. And when you start to make that change, you're opening the doors for emotions you've never experienced before.
When you're surviving, you don't have a conscience.
No,
you can't have a conscience when you're surviving, because if you did, you wouldn't survive.
No.
No, that's not, and that's what get really angry with people. And crime's a choice. It might be for you, but when you're in this situation, it's a necessity.
It's it's easier to be in that circle, I think, because everyone's messed up. Everyone's accepting each other's behaviour and enabling it, because no one wants to be alone.
No.
We're human beings. No one wants to be alone.
No one's challenging you.
No one's challenging
you shouldn't do that. They're helping you.
Yeah.
Oh no, you shouldn't break in that window.
No.
They're giving you a hand up.
Exactly, and no one wants to be alone as humans. None of us want to be alone, So a lot of traumatized people, lost people will fall into them gaps because for comfort. It's comfort. A lot of people don't want to be, and look at yourself. You didn't really in your heart want to be that person.
No, no, not at all. Even committing certain crimes, I'll be thinking, what the fuck are you doing? But that's like that part, but the other is like, fucking don't listen to him. What are you listening to him for? Crack on. You have a bit of money, go out for a drink with the lads on a Friday night. It is, and that's why prevention's better than cure, because an early intervention. Because once you get into that situation, you're fucked. You can't get out of it. It's very difficult. You can't get out. It all begins with you. It has to come from you. Yeah, it does have to come from you. But again, not everyone gets that. They don't understand that they're the ones that are in control of them.
Sometimes you need signposting, you need understanding. But it is starting to happen, isn't it?
Oh,
slowly,
yeah, it's changing.
Slowly.
It's starting to
change.
changing.
Because this is another question I wanted to ask you with revolving doors. They've got something going on at the minute to set up mental health treatment requirements, isn't it?
Right.
Are you involved in that?
Well, revolving doors. The lived experience team. So we've got a lived experience team, the national lived experience team. So we're made up of really diverse group of people from all across England and Wales, and we do a lot of work through revolving doors. But something that I'm extremely proud of being involved in is the work we do with the NHS Health and Justice. I mentioned about let's look at health, let's look at crime through a health lens. And Health and Justice have what's known as liaison diversion. A quick bit of history. In 2009, Lord Keith Bradley had an inquiry into health inequalities in the criminal justice system. And on the back of the report that he wrote, the Liaison Diversion Service was created. Liaison Diversion is based in courts and police stations, so they can help liaise with people and divert them away from the criminal justice system. Though it's not the liaison diversion workers that do the diversion, they're the ones that provide the information to the authorities for them to do the diversion. Okay. They're the support agency that will help people get into other services to save them having to go to court or probation or whatever. Because the more people that we can sort of divert away from the criminal justice system, again, early intervention, prevention. But so on the back of that, you had L&D, and off the back of L&D, there was Reconnect, Enhanced Reconnect, and MHTRs, which are mental health treatment requirements. So those, we've been working with the NHS Health and Justice on those services virtually from day one of each one of them. Other than L&D, I think Reconnect, Enhanced Reconnect, and MHTRs, we've been working with them from day one. And by that I mean the NHS Health and Justice come to us and said, look, we've got this idea. You're the people with lived experience. What do you think? And they really listen to us, and they change so much, and they don't just listen to us, they back what we say with actions from themselves. They do the stuff that they said they're going to do.
And what better people than the people who've lived it?
Well, of course, yeah. Well, it's service users, isn't it? It's user experience. I mean, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, they spend absolute millions on trying to find out what their users think of their product. Right. Why not the criminal justice system?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. It's no different. And
how do you manage all this? Like, you know, because you do motivational speaking. You was with Kent Police the other day, weren't you? What was it like? What was that like?
That was incredible. Well, I grew up in Kent Police. I grew up.
And they used to be your nemesis, didn't they?
They were my nemesis. Yeah, they hated me. Tucker.
These officers,
Brumble. Yeah, Brumble. Lily Crack. He was my juvenile delinquent officer. He was JLO. That was
still about now?
No, I don't know. I think a lot of them be dead now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so it was a so each district in Kent has an advisory group, an independent advisory group that's made up of local businesses. You know, I mean, a bit like at Chambers of Commerce, but in respect of crime and justice, or crime and punishment, you should call it. So this is a regular meeting they have of all the heads of the advisory groups, but you also had like the chief inspector of Kent Police, the district commander, inspector of this, chief inspector of that. So all these uniforms were in this room, and it was just, and you know what? They really did make me feel welcome. I was shitting myself. I was struggling not to become overwhelmed by the place.
Well, they once was the enemy, weren't they?
They were. I mean, I really did walk back into Lion's Den, and in a way, it was closure. I mean, I do I go back into prisons quite a lot as well as a guest, and I still find that surreal. I mean, do you know, something that people don't talk about.
What is that? There's a thing you say.
Going back without going backwards.
That's the one.
Going back without going backwards.
I really love that one. That's
and
when I think of David Breakspear, that's what I think of.
But that's what it is, yeah. It's going back without going backwards. And I'm not going back in there to tell people, oh, look at me, everyone. Look at you lot stuck in jail, and look at what I did. It ain't about that. It's about, and the thing, it's like mentoring. I think it was Simon Sinek, who's a famous motivational speaker and whatever. But it was him that said, mentoring isn't about telling people what you did. It's about showing them what they're capable of. And that's what I do in prison. Is we recently set up an academy at Revolving Doors for our new members. Something I wish I had when I first come out of prison. And as much as it's about skills and attributes and things like that, the biggest thing I want them to get out of it is to believe in themselves. Because once you believe in yourself, anything's possible. And that's again
starts there, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's another reason. And other people. If you believe in yourself, other people believe in you. But if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you?
There we go.
You have to believe in yourself first. And I mentioned about forgiving yourself. Now, I haven't done, I suppose, scummy crimes, nasty crimes, if you like, but I have committed crime. And when I was talking about having that conscience and starting to feel guilt and regret over that, um, I had to forgive myself, because if I didn't, I would never have been able to let it go. Um, I am sorry to anybody that I've hurt, offended, or anything in the past because of my past behaviour, because of who I was. But I'm no longer that person. And I don't think people are the real person when they're stuck in the revolving doors of crisis of crime
Trauma.
or trauma or whatever it is. It's not them.
No.
It's not them. And that's what we need to do. We need to ensure that we, through early intervention, and again, prevention is better than cure, I always come back to that.
Yep.
But through early intervention, it's not just about stopping people going down the road of the criminal justice system. It's also about giving them the belief in themselves that they can be whatever they want.
Really
Every
important.
child deserves to be successful.
It's
Every
really
child.
important. This, yeah,
It
really
is
important.
100%, mate.
I could listen to you all day, man. No, listen,
I could talk all day.
No, but that's not. You're making my job easier. I was really excited for this because I just knew you got. I'll follow you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I suggest anyone follow David Breakspear on LinkedIn if you're interested in what he's got to say, because it's absolutely brilliant stuff. You've done so many motivational things, haven't you? There's just too many to list. But if people,
and do you know
list
what?
a few, please.
Well, I've spoken at the House of Commons several times, both in the House of Parliament, both in the House of Lords and the House
You was
of
a
Commons.
criminal. You was living in a church doorway.
Do you know what? And the
less
thing
than a
was as
decade
well.
ago.
And the thing was as well. When I first started getting involved in going in and out of prison, we didn't have a complaint form then. We didn't have complaint. You didn't have no form of complaint. You put up or shut up. It was simple as that. Yeah, mate. And if you did play up, you end up getting put on a ghost train.
Which is
the ghost train. Yeah, I mean the ghost train really is for high security prisoners like Kevin Lane and Keith Rose. Who I'm just amazed that I'm following them two in this series of podcasts. I mean, I used to look up to Keith Rose. I've never met Keith Rose. Never done any. I don't know if I was in any prison with him, but I know because I've never done the high security estate, and so even though I've got a lot of experience in the criminal justice system, I'm still learning myself. Another thing I like to say is that we're all both students and teachers. But Keith Rose, man. I mean, he used to write a lot in Inside Time, and he was very much an activist, a campaigner, and I took a lot from that. I mean, Mark Leach, someone else from back in the day, Norman Parker, he's someone else that I've kind of utilised as a role model because I knew this is the work I wanted to do when I come out of jail, because it was by doing this sort of work in prison as to why I become a better person, but gave me purpose and gave me a reason to live. So why wouldn't I then bring it out on the outside with me and carry on doing it? It's what I enjoy doing.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I want to set up a sort of weekly live podcast remotely, virtual. We can all link in. Maybe we could have you, me, Keith all together.
Yeah,
maybe if you was interested in that.
No, I'd love to do one, mate. Yeah, I'd love to.
I want to spin it a little bit now. Yeah,
Cool.
It's a bit more humour.
Yeah.
Because me and you have a few chats, don't we?
Yeah.
What's Black Eye Friday?
Black Eye Friday, right? Okay. Most prisons, I know it's changed a bit these days, and some get them on a Wednesday or whatever day of the week, but that's when you get your canteen. And of course, back in the day, you used to get your canteen from a shop. You used to literally walk into a cell, and it'd be like a double cell or something, and you'd have the geezer in your brown Mac there, proper cutting up cubes of old Oldburn into quarters, your half-pea fruit salads and blackjacks. But yeah, Black Eye Friday. Basically, if you owe someone money or you owe someone items on a Friday and you don't pay up, you're getting a black eye. That's
well known,
simple.
isn't it? Society people come out big shiners.
Yes, mate. Yeah, I used to love Fridays in jail. I used to sit back and just watch people run about. It's like a stock exchange. You see people running about with pillowcases, trying to look subtle and like they're not up to anything. You can see funny as fuck.
Just imagine like,
and you get queues outside people's houses like that. Someone gets a mobile phone, they get a queue outside their cell.
Yeah,
they might as well have a sign up saying car phone warehouse.
Yeah.
Or the Nag Z or something. It's always other people in prison that fuck it up for people in prison.
Yeah.
It ain't the screws. It's other people because they just bring it on top.
Well, it was like Kevin was saying, he had if you want to come to my party, you have to dress nice, and he just and I've heard from other people that's the true story. I mean, I know Kevin wouldn't lie. I'm not saying that, but he said he used to have his party, and they're like, Kevin likes to drink, manage him, and he said he used to have his tunes on, he have a drink, and
Look, screws ain't stupid, man.
Nah.
They if they got someone that can kind of keep the calm to us. Sorry, keep the landing to a certain calmness. I mean, when I was, they knew we were. Me and a few of my mates, we were up to no good. We were doing. They knew, of course, they fucking know.
They know.
Do you know what I mean?
They let you know. As well.
Yeah, and so sometimes, and it's when I mean, I got involved in the drug spice game, and we hadn't had any drugs or anything really in the jail for about 2 weeks, been proper dry. And all of a sudden we got 4.5 ounces over this stuff called vortex annihilation. Fucking hell. Well, it was called vortex annihilation.
Vortex annihilation.
I'll tell you what, mate, fucking hell, didn't it? I think
it just says it all, doesn't it?
I think something like 30 people went over in one night. There were bells going off. It was like, oh my God, what the fuck have we done?
Yeah,
and,
it's dangerous stuff, isn't it?
Oh, mate, that's proper dangerous stuff.
So what about
and then
Spice
that was
Olympics?
it all started to come on top.
Did they call it Spice Olympics down south? Where everyone's, it's like stage one. I mean, I shouldn't say this.
Do you know what the thing is?
Correct, but stage one cerebral palsy. It looks like they're cerebral palsy.
Oh, mate, it's. I mean, some of the stuff that we used to get people to do. I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh, but it's fucking hilarious when you're in prison. It's like we had a guy, Chucky, and he used to love a puff. But as soon as he'd have 3 puffs, he'd be gone. He'd be over on the floor. But we used to send him down to the office to do windmills with his cock and things like that. Do you know what I mean? I remember one guy working in the kitchens, and fucking he plugged 3 boiled eggs. Wow. Oh, mate, he got caught for it. But
I think what people don't understand is what people need to understand is in that environment, it's the little things like that are very important. The humour is very important. Mate, It's like what Kevin was saying in there. Like Kevin was saying, you need to have a laugh because if you haven't got that emotional release, if you haven't got that emotional release,
it's going to come out.
It's going to come out of ways.
And the humour is, I mean, it's graveyard humour.
Yeah. Very dark, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've had to kind of sort of level off on my humour out here because it's not everyone appreciates it, but you gotta laugh. I mean,
of course.
I mean, I got a million stories coming through my head. I can see
you're enjoying it. You're enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm just remembering it. It was like one of the times I was in HMP Canterbury. I was on a YP land. It was in a men's prison. First time I've been at big man's jail. You had.
Was you starred up then? Was you?
No, it was a YP landing.
Okay.
So you had A wing, B wing, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4. So we were B4 and B4 YP. The rest of the prison were all adults. That was a fucking lesson to be learnt now. But I was banged up with this kid. I won't say his name, but I was banged up with this fella. And back then, you had to get out of your bed. You couldn't lay in your bed all day. You weren't allowed to lay in your bed. They would come in and tip you out of your bed back then. So anyway, he hadn't got out of his bed, and the screw. I said, "Listen, you better get out of your bed." The screw's coming down. He said, "Oh, I can't." So I said, "What the fuck are you doing in your bed?" So I said, "Go, can I have a work?" He'd shit himself. Right?
Oh no.
Yeah. So he said, "Dave, do me a favour. Please don't say anything to anyone." My mate lived on the wing. Lived in the land. Sorry, he was on the landing opposite, on the same wing, and we were at the top of this Victorian wing. "Oi, Stuart, you ain't going to believe what he's just done." So the whole wing heard it. Oh, mate, proper funny. But I mean, you just, again, I've got 3.5. I've got a cinema reel going on in my head, I tell you.
Well, what I want to do is, like I said, set up a weekly one where we can just talk pure, just the comedy side of it.
And the thing is, right, prison is doom and gloom. Yeah, of course it is. It is doom and gloom. And it ain't a nice place to be.
No.
Nor is it a life to have, but it is a life. And when you're in there making the best out of it, I can't think of a better environment. I can't think of a better environment where people look after each other. Camaraderie, yeah.
Camaraderie.
I mean, where else would you go and have a cook up on a Sunday than prison? You're not going to go. All right, you might go around a mate's house and have a McDonald's, but they're not a barbecue. But they're not going to invite the neighbours.
No, your mackerel curries, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, chicken curry. Love the chicken.
Yeah.
2 cans of Prince's chicken in a bucket.
Oh yeah.
Just I still make chicken curry at home. Not in a bucket. I use a saucepan these days. But it has that same taste. It's like it was a beautiful, beautiful flavour. And the thing with that is, whoever put in took out. Someone might put in some spices. Someone might bring across an onion, some tomatoes, a couple of tins of Prince's curry or mackerel, whatever the curry is. Same with banoffee pie, and just. But you start. I mean, I used to make stuff like cheap donuts, like jam sandwiches folded in half with a bit of batter. Do you know what I mean? Fried in the thing when working in the kitchens. But you just adapt to it, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it's. I thought prison's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
And people like you are fascinating. This is why people
mate.
want to hear you, and everything you've achieved and everything you do. I could never, meeting you now, I could never imagine you've been to prison. All the stuff I've seen you achieve and the stuff on LinkedIn, I couldn't imagine it, because you present yourself so well. You're in the Houses of Parliament, and you know what? Credit to you, man. Like,
Thank you, I appreciate it. And do you know what, in prison, people used to say to me in prison, what the fuck are you doing in here?
Yeah.
You sound like you shouldn't be in prison, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I am. What do you mean I shouldn't be here? I am. Do you know what I mean? The chance to have started, again, I'm going to come back to it. The school to prison pipeline, the school to prison pipeline has a massive effect on our criminal justice system. And what makes me laugh, whenever they talk about school exclusions, it's like, oh, it is very rare. Well, in 2017, when I was last in prison, there was 85,975 people in prison. 54,164 been excluded from school. That's over 60%. So yeah, all right, it might be rare now when someone's a child, but when they become an adult, it ain't rare. 90% of the youth justice system have been excluded from school.
A lot of care, a lot of care leavers.
A
Well,
lot
they
of
ask you that when you
care
go to
leavers.
prison, don't they? Have you been in the armed force? Have you been in care?
Yeah.
Very big.
Yeah.
Could you send me some of them statistics, please?
Yeah, of course.
And I can
Yes,
edit
mate.
into this
Oh,
podcast.
yeah, I'm always going over statistics.
Well, we're going to get to know each other as well, because I'm coming with some of the projects you're doing.
Yeah.
We're going to have to sort of wrap it up, man, because
Not a
it's
problem.
just we could talk
Fun,
for a day.
innit?
We could talk for hours.
we're gonna.
So, we're going to keep
Yeah.
we're going to keep
And
doing
we
this.
could catch
But
up
one
with
thing I wanted to close on, yeah, is if you had a magic wand, right, from your lived experience, I mean, what would you do to change the justice system?
Right. Look, school to prison pipeline straight away. School to prison pipeline. We need. There's a very good professor, Steve Case from Loughborough University, and he always talks about the child first approach. And I think that when it comes to anything in life, it should be a child first approach. We look at the parents and the schools, they blame each other. Well, in the middle is a child that's being ignored and failed. Think of the child, put the child first. And if we start putting children first a lot sooner, there'll be less of them ending up in the criminal justice system. That's the way to deal with it.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more interaction. A lot too many
Invest
people.
in the children. Invest in children. The more we invest in our youth now, the less we have to spend in the future on the crime and punishment, and the more money we can spend on services that need it most.
Brilliant. I hope people from this podcast add you and learn from you, because you know what, I've learned so much from you in the short time I've known you, and I'm going to keep learning. So, mate, it's been great having you today, and we're definitely going to do some more.
100%.
David, 100%. Thank you,
Nathan, you're welcome, bro.
Thank you very much
for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you very much, bro.
Thank you, mate.